How you doing? For today's ranking, we're going to rank the Five Nights at Freddy's games based off of their gameplay and how fun they are to play, how difficult they can be, and various other things too, like replayability, certain mechanics and other things, the aspects of the games, how they function. Essentially, I'm just going to be ranking the games based off the gameplay itself. So also, same rules apply, not including spin-offs, not including special delivery, because special delivery fucking sucks. I hate AR games. They're terrible. Starting off at the bottom, shockingly enough, Sister Location. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I was going to put Security Breach at the bottom of the barrel in terms of gameplay, which I definitely would have. Don't get me wrong. I definitely would have put Security Breach at the bottom, but Sister Location, I just don't care. It is boring because everything is practically scripted. 80% of this game is scripted. Everything is predictable. You already know how it goes, and so you have to trek through the whole game every single night. You can't choose which night you want to go on. You have to go through the whole game every single night, and it's just frustrating because you just don't care. You don't care at a certain point in time. It's like, you know how to do this. The bitty bab stuff is like, oh man, I have to click with my mouse or click the button to just hold it shut. Ooh, cool. You go through vents and you know nothing can get you in the vents, so it's like you can waste as much time as you want, do something else, just walk away from the keyboard or something. Across the rooms, which are the best aspect of this game, which fucking sucks because they're too short. You barely get to truly enjoy them. You never really get to explore the location as a whole. It limits you to where you can go. You don't really get to explore, go around, and get certain puzzle pieces or anything. You have to go on a specific route. Otherwise, you're nothing. Nothing's gonna happen. You have to literally go through that route. There's nothing else special. There's a one point in Night 3 where you can get a little Easter egg to figure out how to beat the mini game, the death mini game, but that's pretty much it. There's no other secrets to find, nothing else interesting about this game. And then don't even get me started with Night 4, throwing you into a scenario you've never been in before and being like 10 times harder than the rest of the whole game. It's like, how do they expect you to do the whole spring lock thing? We never did that mechanic before. It's something completely new. And then they put it at the hardest difficulty. Scott, why did you put it at the hardest difficulty, man? Ender Night is great. I think the Ender Night's fantastic. But to get to the Ender Night, there's so much requirements from you to get it. You have to literally die multiple times just to get the death mini game. And it became such a problem, he had to add it on the main menu or some kind of custom menu just for you to play it, because you had to literally keep on dying in order to get the minigame, and it wasn't even a guarantee that you were going to pass the minigame successfully. So automatically, getting to the Ender Night is tricky as is, not as fun as is. But then you have to play through the entire Circus Baby repair scene again. Rather than starting from the Ender Night, doing the whole Ender Night, which is as hard as it is already, you have to go all the way back to the main lobby area, go all the way through the cross room, follow Baby's instructions, and then make it back to the breaker room without dying from Ennard. I'm good. And the custom night is probably easily the weakest custom night in the entire franchise. You have shitty characters who don't really do anything as interesting. Obviously, Ultimate Custom Night had characters that had similar features, but it's Ultimate Custom Night. There's 50 characters, not just 10. When half of your roster in the Custom Night does nothing to you, and just waste your oxygen and electricity and power, that's it. That's a waste. Complete waste. Just being in your face, just walking past your screen, typing in. Like, really? That's it? Yeah, you had Circus Baby you could have used. You had Ennard you could have used. Nope. Scott didn't use any of that. And the game's just boring. It's just lackluster. There's nothing interesting to me about it. It easily takes the worst of the worst in terms of gameplay. Coming in 8th place, obviously, it's going to be Security Breach. And Security Breach is no better. But at least with Security Breach, you can actually roam a bit more freely than in Sister Location, which is just a straight line to your destination. While Security Breach also forces you in a linear pathway, which I don't like. If you're gonna have a linear pathway, at least allow us to do more stuff in the meantime, like figure out more puzzles to do, more Easter eggs and stuff. Security Breach just functions like a linear game until, you know, after a certain point in time where you survive 6 a.m. And also, it's false advertisement. Just like Sister Location, which false advertises Circus Baby. This game false advertises a lot. Not only false advertises Vanny and Vanessa for being the main villain of this game, but it also false advertises Five Nights at Freddy's and gives you one night at Freddy's. Great. Rather than having us be in a specific part of the mall per night, surviving a specific animatronic in that section, figuring out puzzles and clues and stuff, we go through the entire mall in one night, and that's the game. Oh, and you have lackluster endings, all of which piss you off in some way, or just don't feel as satisfying as a conclusion as you want it to be. None of them feel like a satisfying conclusion. Not even the one where you get to save everybody feels as satisfying, because it's like you played an arcade game and you don't even get to kill Glitch Trap yourself. You just open a door and then Vanny's free. It's a little frustrating. And I haven't even touched on the main problem with the game, which is obviously the bugs and the glitches. You know, sometimes a game can be glitchy and fun. You know, sometimes glitches can make a game more fun. This game, the glitches make the game more frustrating, because when they glitches out and they ruin your progress and you have to do something all over again, and that is the worst. Not to mention, there's nothing fun and exciting about animatronics just teleporting to your spot. It's like, I get it. You don't want the animatronics to roam around the whole building, but why do you make it so that they teleport right there? Like, why couldn't you make it so that the alarm goes off and they have to run, and they run their asses over to your location? It's just not as interesting when they just appear, because you're gonna always run into security bots. There's so many fucking security bots that playing the whole stealth game is not really interesting or fun, because the result is just something lackluster. It's not something like fear-inducing, you know, because they're just gonna pop up right next to you. It's just like, okay, so I'm either gonna die or I just have to die. That's essentially it. But the reason why I have it over Sister Location is because at least there are certain things that you can do to where you can get a little bit more enjoyable entertainment out of than Sister Location, which is just pretty much the whole thing is almost scripted. So you don't really get to get that enjoyment factor. It's all force-fed to you. Security Breach, they give you a little bit more variety of randomness, which obviously is what gives it the leverage in my eyes. Taking 7th place is going to be Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Now, as much praise as I could give this game for being criminally underrated and too heavily bashed, one thing I can agree mostly on with a lot of people is that the game is not as enjoyable or fun as the FNAF games around it. All you have to do in this FNAF game is lure Springtrap away from you, and people make it seem like it's a lot easier than it actually is, but when you actually look at the game and how it's structured, it's actually very well crafted, to the point where every room you try to lure him in, there's going to be some kind of conflict you're going to run into. For example, if you try to trap him in cameras 6 and 7, there's a vent there, and Phantom Chica's there, so if you get jump scared by Phantom Chica, he could run into the vent and get to your office. If you try to trap him in the cam 2, 3, 4 area, Phantom Mangle's there, and Phantom Mangle breaks your audio, so you have to go fix your audio so Springtrap can run to your office, see you through the mirror, or he could go through that little vent right next to you. If you try to trap him in the 5, 8 camera area, the Phantom Marionette is there. So if you try to trap him there, the Phantom Marionette may get you, and there's also a vent that leads directly towards your office through cam 5. So if you're not careful enough, you get screwed that way. If you try to trap them in the camera 9, 10 area, then there's 2 vents that lead directly straight to you. So if you're not careful, you're pretty much screwed. Then you also have other benefactors too, like if you stay on the camera for too long, Phantom Foxy's gonna show up. If you stay off the camera too long, Phantom Freddy's gonna show up. If you're sporadically going through the cameras, then Phantom BB's gonna show up. It's very well placed and very well made. There is an obstacle for every situation that you try to utilize, which is very smart. I love that Scott did that for this game, and a lot of people don't seem to even realize it because they just think that the Phantom animatronics just appear just because. But no, it's actually specifically created so that they appear in specific cameras, so that you don't try to trap Springtrap in that area. You know, Springtrap could actually get loose. And other things about the game is crafted so that Springtrap can get you, such as the cameras being shitty and old. Obviously, a lot of people have a problem with the camera being so shitty, but if you actually pay attention to the story, listen to the phone dude, you'd know the reason why the cameras are so shitty, and it makes sense in a story perspective. And then you also are dealing with Springtrap, who is a killer. He is the purple guy, and so he does this thing where he hides in the shadows. He hides in the certain spots where you won't be able to see him, and that helps him out to be able to get to you, because if he was just in the obvious line of sight, then you'd know where he is, and then you would never have a problem trying to find him, and he wouldn't be able to get to you at all, and that defeats the whole purpose of the game. So the game is well crafted, it is well made, it is well structured. The problem, I think, for the game is that it's not as enjoyable to play. You don't get the same enthusiasm of keeping Springtrap away from you as you are to keep multiple different animatronics away from you at the same time. So for that, I think it lands perfectly at 7th place. I definitely have a lot more fun playing this than either Sister Location or Security Breach. So it's going to land here for now. But just do know I do respect FNAF 3 a lot more than most. Now, taking 6th place, this is going to be a very interesting placement for this game, and that is Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Now, if you heard me from the last video when I ranked FNAF 4 for how scary it was, then you also heard me say that it's so scary that it's actually a detriment, and it's because it is. Because the game is so fear-inducing and forces you into a scenario where you are guaranteed to either be startled or scared, and using up energy, real energy, of trying to listen in and trying to actually like keep going back and forth and paying attention to details that you may not even catch, it actually harms the gameplay and it harms the replayability, because every night you are constantly listening in, you're constantly having to do something. You don't really get a chance to speak, you don't really get a chance to have a break, to take a breather. Like when you stop an animatronic, it's not like, oh, you're safe now. It's like, no, you have to worry about maybe if Freddy is about to appear behind you, or no, you have to worry about if Foxy is going to run into your room. And you have all these different aspects. Really harms the game, shockingly, which really sucks, because this game is masterful at being a terrifying game. But because it focuses all of its attention on trying to be a masterful horror game, it takes away the game aspect of it, which is being able to actually have fun playing the game and enjoy going around to different rooms to try to keep the animatronics out. It's more like a jump scare simulator. It's like you go there to just get scared. You play FNAF 4 for the simple fact to get scared. While it is very challenging, it's practically a guarantee that you're going to die in some loud, scary, terrifying way, and if you don't get enjoyment out of that, then it's gonna be hard to get through that game. And it's not like the mini games or the story of FNAF 4, which I haven't even touched on because I'm saving that for the story ranking video, is any more enjoyable to keep tuning. It's like, it's cool to see the countdown of the birthday, but once you understand how this side of the story really messed up everything as a whole, it just makes you a little bit angry and frustrated. Well, it makes me angry and frustrated because this is my list. So overall, I just don't see myself playing FNAF 4 at all. But I definitely, I can see the intrigue of playing this game much more than I would to play FNAF 3. Because at least, with this game, it feels like a very well crafted game to where you can actually still get some enjoyment out of being immersed. But sometimes the immersion is just a little too much for me to enjoy. So that's why it's going to land here. Number 5, which is Help Wanted. FNAF Help Wanted has to be played in VR. If you don't play this game in VR, you're not going to get the true experience of this game. Because the whole point of this game is to recreate all the other FNAF games in VR. So if you don't have a VR set, don't even bother playing it, because you can just play the other FNAF games. But if you have a VR headset, this game is very fun and immersive. You get to actually be immersive in the first 4 FNAF game settings. Not to mention that you get a lot of cool new mini games, some classic mini games here and there too, from like Sister Location, and you get to really have a lot more to explore. It's like an exploration, a tribute game to the whole franchise as a whole. and you get to go through everything, and you get to really experience everything in a new light, actually being there. And that's what makes the game a lot more fun. Unfortunately, you know, without the VR headset, you don't really get that immersion. You don't really get to have that experience. It's just another standard game, and it feels like almost like a bootleg FNAF without the VR headset, because it's just everything is a lot more clankier and moves a lot more weirder and stranger. So you don't really get to have the same experience if you don't experience it with a VR headset. But I do think that everyone should experience this in VR at least once, because overall as a game, I think it's perfectly created. Coming in 4th place, FNAF 1. The original Five Nights at Freddy's, a masterpiece at gaming. I love this game. This game is dear to my heart. In terms of fun and gameplay, I do think it still holds up perfectly. The horror, the atmosphere, and how it utilizes it into the gameplay with certain sound effects and sound cues, and that you have to learn over time what they mean. And once you start to get an understanding of what those sound cues mean, you really get to be there and experience, like, oh, okay, this is how I play, this is how I beat the game, this is how I do this and do that. And I love that about this game, and I love how simplistic its concept is. I love simplistic concepts that form complex things, because that's the best type of storytelling, when you take something simplistic and you add a new flavor, a new flair to it, to get it going, to get it popping, to make it special in its own unique way. I really like that. If you're going to take something that's well known, you got to make it unique in some way. But this is not well known. Nobody's done a game like this where you sit and survive, really. Nobody's really had a horror game like that or styled like that. So this was like a very great first time experience of a game like this. In terms of replayability and gameplay, I don't think it's as fun to play as some of these other FNAF games. I think that these next 3 FNAF games that I'm going to be talking about are a lot more fun to play than this original. But this original, don't get me wrong, is still very fun to play in terms of just experiencing it once more. Obviously, as time goes on, you don't really get to experience it the same way as you did the first time. For me, experiencing this game for the first time was something else. It was truly something special. And I think that in terms of gameplay, it still holds up really well. It's still pretty good. But obviously, you know, if you're not somebody who's in it for the immersion, you're not going to really like this game all too much. And the game's going to look very cheap and simplistic. But, you know, that's the point of the game. It's supposed to feel very cheap whilst also being very unique. Taking 3rd place is going to be Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Now, this feels like the dark horse of the franchise, which is very weird because it's not supposed to be the dark horse, yet it feels like it is, because it combines so many different FNAF elements whilst doing something new entirely. And so it makes it very unique in its own way. In terms of gameplay, there's a lot to be had. There's multiple different endings you could try and achieve to get, which is probably the best part of this game, is trying to get all the different endings and do different unique things, and being able to simulate the pizzeria in different ways. Whether you don't buy anything, you try to buy everything if you can, you try to get as many lawsuits, you try to not get a single lawsuit, you know, various different ways you can play this. You can salvage all the animatronics, you can salvage none of the animatronics. That's what makes this game very replayable and very fun. The difficulty of this game, you know, it's still pretty challenging, especially on later nights when you have to really get a good strategy to keep the animatronics away. And there's various methods that you can utilize, from the silent vent of making the air silent so you can actually hear, the audio lure luring them away, and the motion sensor to see where they are. I like the variety that this game has. And then of course you obviously have the table and the interrogation thing. That's just beautiful masterpiece right there. Overall, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator brings new life to the franchise, and this game is indeed a pretty fun game. Taking 2nd place is gonna be Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I love this game. You're gonna see that I love this game a lot. Its gameplay is so much fun. Just like a sequel to any game, to any movie, of anything, when you have a sequel, you have to amp up the stakes. That's what this game does. It gives you the original cast all broken down and withered. It gives you a new cast, and it combines them together to make this action, fast-paced game that's very chaotic and very fun and very in your face, like, oh, you better hurry up, you better pay attention, you better do something. And I really like that about this game. And it's not like it challenges you right off the gate. The first 3-4 nights, you know, they start off very simplistically. They allow you to understand the character's mechanics. They allow you to understand how Toy Freddy works. They allow you how to understand how Toy Chica and Toy Bonnie work on the first night. The second night, they allow you to figure out how Balloon Boy and Mangle work, and maybe the Marionette and Withered Foxy. The third night, they allow you to figure out how the Withered animatronics work. And so that way, once you understand how everything works and how to beat each character, then as the nights progress, it gets harder and more chaotic. But you'll be ready because you know how to beat each of them now. And I love how it's structured like that. FNAF 1 is structured in a similar way, but FNAF 2 requires this structure because there's so many characters, and I think it does it perfectly. And having you to focus on only certain things, otherwise you're going to die if you misclick or if you mess up, is perfect. It well masters the strategic part of this game, because even though this is a survival horror game, it's also a strategy game. You also have to figure out a good strategy of how to survive and how to beat each animatronic without messing up. And each animatronic has their own unique features. They're not all the same. They all have something different. Even though you can beat them the same way, each of them function a little bit differently. Like some of them you have to look at the light in the vents to see if they're there in order to put on the mask. Others, they pop in your room and you have to be ready. You have Toy Bonnie, who takes up more time because you have to see him and then you have to wait for him to come by, and the others you have to wait for them to bang out of the room. There's just so many different aspects that you have to pay attention, you have to stay focused, and if you don't, you're dead. And I really like that about this game. That's what makes this game so replayable, so fun, is because there's so much going on that you have to pay attention and you have to stay focused. And the custom night is perhaps one of the best. Obviously not the best, as you're going to see, but the custom night is definitely one of the best, and allows you not only to pick different challenges that you could try and do, but it allows you to change the difficulty, which is something that the sister location custom night doesn't do for some reason, which I think is very stupid, that it doesn't allow you to change the difficulty of the different animatronics. But this one allows you to fight against specific one-off animatronics and the Marionette and Withered Foxy too. But obviously, taking first place is going to be Ultimate Custom Night. It shouldn't come as a surprise that this is the best game in terms of gameplay overall. It's so fun to play. You have many different things you can do. There's unlockables, like different offices, different power-ups you can get. You can change any difficulty of any character, play with any character. You can play various different challenges. There's so much you could do in this game, and even though certain animatronics mechanics are a little bit silly, stupid, goofy, it never feels broken. It actually feels like it all fits together in one place and is designed specifically for you to be able to beat, which is something I can't say about Security Breach, but it's definitely something I can say about Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night is just a great, fun little addition to this franchise and just adds a new flavor to what a custom night can be in FNAF, and it makes up for what Sister Location's custom night was by a landslide. I mean, you just have various different characters throughout the franchise. Even though you don't have them all, which I wish you did have them all, like Super Smash Brothers here, it's still a blast. And even to this day, you know, I might find myself playing it from time to time because it's so much fun. I don't really play games at all anymore, so for a game like that to get me to go play again, just to, you know, have a little fun and fuck around a bit, that takes a lot. That takes a lot. So I give congrats in Ultimate Custom Night taking first place in terms of my gameplay ranking. But how would y'all rank the Five Nights at Freddy's games? What order would you put them in? Is there a FNAF game that you would have higher on your list, lower on your list? Leave it in the comments. You know I'll read them. Overall, you know, this is how I would rank the FNAF games based off of a gameplay perspective. I'm going to do, I think, 2 more of these videos. I'm going to do one on story, and then I'm going to do one re-ranking the franchise as a whole and each game as a whole, and, you know, everything. So with that, I'm going to now leave you be. Arrivederci, you bitch ass motherfucker.